He rejected her for being too fat, and what she did next left everyone paralyzed. The Bella Vista restaurant was the most expensive in Manhattan, the kind of place where a single meal cost more than many people's monthly rent. On that Friday night, the tables were packed with wealthy patrons, dressed in designer clothes, laughing too loudly and drinking wine that cost $1,000 a bottle. In the center of the room, at a reserved table near the windows overlooking the illuminated city, sat Farid Al-Rahman, 38, an Arab businessman who owned a luxury hotel chain valued at $300 million. He wore a dark gray Armani suit, a Patek Philippe watch on his wrist, and his black hair was slicked back. His face displayed the expression of someone accustomed to getting everything he wanted. Beside him, his cousin Nadia, who had arranged the blind date, nervously fiddled with her cell phone. "Farid, she's arriving," Nadia whispered in Arabic. "Please be polite. Desiree is an incredible woman, a Harvard graduate. She works as a financial consultant." "If she's so incredible," Farid cut in English, "why is she single at 32? The restaurant door opened. Desiree Washington walked in. 32 years old, black skin gleaming under the chandelier lights, her coily hair pulled back into an elegant bun. She wore a navy blue dress that hugged every curve of her generous figure. She was plus size. Fat, as many would whisper. But there was something about Desiree that commanded attention beyond her size, the way she held her head high, shoulders back, and a sincere smile. Nadia stood up excitedly, waving. Desiree walked towards the table, and Farid finally looked at her. What happened next was something Desiree would never forget. Farid's face completely changed. The polite expression vanished, replaced by disgust. His eyes scanned her body from top to bottom, lingering on her thick thighs, protruding belly, and rounded arms. He made no attempt to hide it. "Nadia," he said loudly, not caring that Desiree was only 3 steps from the table, "are you kidding me?" Desiree stopped walking. Her smile froze. "Farid, don't. Did you really think I was going to sit here and have dinner with this?" He gestured in Desiree's direction. "Look at the size of her. She's enormous. She must weigh more than you and me put together." The restaurant fell silent. All conversations ceased. Waiters froze with trays in their hands. Other customers turned their heads, some shocked, others curious. Desiree felt the floor disappear beneath her feet. She felt her face burn, her hands tremble. But she didn't move. She stood there still, staring at the man in the expensive suit who was looking at her as if she were trash. "Farid, you're being ridiculous," Nadia hissed, mortified. "Apologize now. Apologize." Farid let out a cruel laugh. "For speaking the truth? Look, Nadia, I have standards. And my standard does not include women who clearly don't know how to control what they eat." Desiree finally found her voice. "Are you done?" Farid looked at her, surprised. "Excuse me?" "I asked," Desiree repeated, her voice growing stronger, "if you are done humiliating me in public. Because if you are, I'd like to say something." Farid crossed his arms, an arrogant smirk on his face. "Go ahead." Desiree took 2 steps forward, standing face to face with him. Her brown eyes met his fearlessly. "You think you hurt me? You think your words destroyed me? Then let me tell you a secret, Farid. Men like you have judged me by my body my entire life. And do you know what I learned?" She leaned in closer, her voice low but sharp as glass. "I learned that men who judge women by their bodies are the emptiest inside. Because when you have no character, no substance, nothing real to offer, all that's left is to judge appearances. And you, Farid, with all your money and your expensive suits, are the poorest man I have ever met." The restaurant was so quiet you could hear the air conditioning humming. Farid opened his mouth, but no words came out. Desiree turned to Nadia. "Thank you for the invitation. You deserve a better cousin." Then she walked towards the door, head held high, steps firm, while every eye in the restaurant followed her. When she left, the restaurant erupted in whispers. A few women clapped discreetly. Nadia stood, tears of anger in her eyes. "You are pathetic," she said to her cousin in Arabic. "Absolutely pathetic." And she left too. Farid sat back down, picked up his wine glass, and drank calmly. He had done her a favor by being honest. What Farid Al-Rahman didn't know that night was that Desiree Washington was not just any woman. and that this public humiliation would be only the first chapter of a story that would haunt him for the next 2 years. Because Desiree held secrets. Secrets about who she really was, about connections she had, about plans already months in the making. And most importantly, she knew something about Farid's empire that he himself was unaware of, something that was about to crumble all his certainties. If you are following this story of transformation and justice, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, because what comes next will show that underestimating someone based on appearance can be the biggest mistake of your life. 3 days after the humiliation at Bella Vista, Desiree was sitting in her office on the 47th floor of the Goldman Tower, her fingers flying over the keyboard as she analyzed complex financial spreadsheets. Her desk had a panoramic view of Manhattan, but she barely looked out the window. The door opened and Patricia Chun, 52, the CEO of the largest financial consulting firm on the East Coast, walked in. Short, thin, with short gray hair, she was one of the most powerful women on Wall Street. "Desiree," Patricia said, closing the door. "I just got an interesting call. Apparently, you've made the news." Desiree looked up. "Let me guess. Video from the restaurant." "Exactly. 2 million views. And I recognized the man in the video. Farid Al-Rahman, owner of Al-Rahman Luxury Hotels." Patricia smiled slowly. "And guess what? He just hired us." Desiree stopped typing. "What?" 3 weeks ago, before this incident, his board hired us for a full audit. They suspect irregularities. And guess who I assigned as the lead analyst? Desiree's heart quickened. "You didn't." "I did. You are the best analyst I have. Graduated from Harvard with honors, 10 years of dissecting billion-dollar companies. If there's something rotten in Al-Rahman Hotels, you'll find it." Desiree leaned back in her chair. "Patricia, this might look personal. Revenge." "Revenge? You're going to do your job. Analyze numbers, find the truth. If you find something wrong, it won't be revenge. It will be justice." For a long moment, Desiree was silent. Then a smile appeared. "When do I start?" 2 weeks later, Desiree was in a conference room inside the Al-Rahman Hotel's headquarters, surrounded by piles of financial documents. She had spent 14 days immersed in the company's records. And what she found was devastating. Suspicious transfers to offshore accounts. Overpriced contracts with shell companies. Diverted investor funds. Bribes to inspectors. Money laundering disguised as renovations that never happened. And at the center of it all, Farid Al-Rahman. Desiree compiled a 200-page dossier with irrefutable evidence. Bank statements showing 5 million transferred to tax havens. Emails between Farid and his CFO discussing how to hide losses. Fake contracts with his handwriting. On a rainy Thursday afternoon, Desiree was reviewing the final documents when the door burst open. Farid Al-Rahman walked in. He stopped when he saw her. Confusion. Recognition. Anger. "You," he said, his voice low and dangerous. "What are you doing here?" Desiree stood up calmly. "My job, Mr. Al-Rahman. I was assigned to audit your company's finances." Farid's face turned red. "This is ridiculous. You can't be here. It's a conflict of interest." "Conflict of interest? How so? Do we know each other?" "You know very well." "Oh yes," Desiree interrupted, her voice sweet as poisoned honey. "You're that man who insulted me in a restaurant." "Sorry, I forgot. You weren't very memorable." Farid clenched his fists. "I want to speak to Patricia Chun. Now. You can call her. But in the meantime, I need you to sign here confirming you have reviewed the third quarter financial documents. I will not sign anything you put in front of me." "That's fine. I'll note that you refuse to cooperate. I'm sure the board and the SEC will be thrilled to know." Farid took 2 steps toward her desk, menacingly. "You think you're smart? I built this empire from scratch. I have lawyers who eat people like you for breakfast." Desiree looked directly into his eyes. "Then I suggest you put them on a better diet. Because when I'm done here, Mr. Al-Rahman, your lawyers will need miracles, not threats." For a long moment, they stared at each other. Then Farid turned and left, slamming the door so hard that the pictures rattled. Desiree let out the breath she was holding. Her hands were trembling slightly. That evening, Desiree was in her apartment when her cell phone rang. Unknown number. Hello. Ms. Washington? My name is Julian Torres. I'm the CFO of Alramon Hotels. I need to talk to you. Personally. It's urgent. 20 minutes later, Julian was at the corner cafe, sweating. In his early 40s, deep dark circles under his eyes, his hands shaking. I know what you found, he said quietly. I know because I helped create it. Farid forced me. He said if I didn't cooperate, he would destroy my career. I have a wife, 3 kids. Desiree leaned forward. Why are you telling me this? Because you are my only chance to get out of this with dignity. I have copies of everything. Emails, recordings, offshore account passwords. Everything you need to prove that Farid is the mastermind. He pushed a USB drive across the table. In exchange, I want immunity. I will testify against him, but I need protection. Desiree picked up the USB drive, feeling its weight in her palm. This small object could completely destroy Farid. When she returned home, Desiree stayed up late. Farid had publicly humiliated her, treated her like trash. Now she had the power to destroy him. But what she did with that power would define who she truly was. The Alramon Luxury Hotel's Board of Directors meeting was scheduled for a Monday at 9 in the morning. The conference room on the 52nd floor was all glass and marble, with a huge mahogany table where 12 board members sat, all men in expensive suits except for 2 women. Farid walked in confidently, greeting everyone with firm handshakes. He had no idea what was about to happen. Gentlemen, he began, opening his laptop, I brought the numbers from the last quarter and I'm happy to report that. The door opened. Desiree walked in, followed by Patricia Chen and 2 lawyers carrying boxes of documents. Farid froze. What is going on here? The board chairman, Mr. Hamilton, a 70-year-old man with white hair, cleared his throat. Farid, sit down. Ms. Washington is here to present the results of the financial audit we commissioned 2 months ago. 2 months. Farid looked around the table, seeking allies. You hired an audit without consulting me? Yes, Hamilton said firmly. Because there were concerns about irregularities that you might be involved in. Now sit down and let Ms. Washington present. Farid slowly sat down, his jaw tight, his eyes fixed on Desiree with pure hatred. Desiree connected her laptop to the projector. The first image appeared on the giant screen, a graph showing suspicious bank transfers. Gentlemen, she began, her voice calm and professional, over the past 14 days, my team has analyzed all the financial records of Alramon Hotels for the past 5 years. What we found is systemic fraud on a massive scale. She clicked. Bank statements appeared. Between 2019 and 2024, $23 million were transferred from company accounts to offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands registered under the names of shell companies. These companies were created by Mr. Alramon and his CFO, Julian Torres. Farid abruptly stood up. That's a lie. This woman is making things up. Sit down, Farid, Hamilton ordered. I won't sit down while this. Farid pointed at Desiree, searching for offensive words but controlling himself in front of the board. She has personal reasons to destroy me. You don't know who she is. We know exactly who she is, one of the board members, Ms. Rodriguez, said coldly. One of the most respected financial analysts in the country. Unlike you, apparently. Desiree continued as if Farid hadn't spoken. In addition to illegal transfers, we found overpriced contracts. For example, a renovation at the Miami hotel was budgeted at $8 million. The actual work cost $2 million. The remaining $6 million went into Mr. Alramon's personal accounts. She clicked again. Emails appeared on the screen. These are emails between Mr. Alramon and suppliers, where he explicitly discusses how to inflate prices and split the difference. The dates, recipients, and amounts are all documented. The board members looked horrified at the screen, then at Farid, who was pale. There's more, Desiree said. Investor funds were diverted. In 2022, a group of Saudi investors contributed $15 million for European expansion. This money was never used for expansion. It was transferred to personal accounts and used to purchase private properties, yachts, and luxury cars. She showed photos. A $12 million yacht anchored in Monaco. A $20 million mansion in Dubai. All registered in Farid's name. Are you believing this? Farid shouted, completely losing his composure. She forged these documents. She is persecuting me because I rejected her. This is personal revenge. Desiree finally looked directly at him. Personal revenge? Mr. Al-Rahman, I don't need to forge anything. Your own records condemned you. And as for rejecting me. She smiled coldly. That was the best thing you could have done for me. It spared me from getting to know a criminal more intimately. The room fell into absolute silence. Then Patricia Chen stood up. Gentlemen, in addition to the evidence presented, the company's CFO, Julian Torres, has agreed to testify against Mr. Al-Rahman in exchange for immunity. He provided recordings of conversations where Mr. Al-Rahman admits to fraud, bribery, and money laundering. She pressed play on a recorder. Farid's voice filled the room. I don't care if it's illegal, Julian. Do you think I built this by being honest? You do what I say or I'll find someone who will. Farid sank into his chair, his face gray. Hamilton stood up, his voice thundering. Farid Al-Rahman, on behalf of this board, you are immediately removed as CEO of this company. Your shares will be confiscated. And we will be handing all this evidence over to the FBI and the SEC for criminal prosecution. You can't do this. Farid yelled, slamming his hands on the table. I own 40% of this company. You owned, Ms. Rodriguez corrected. The shareholder agreement has a clause allowing immediate removal in the event of proven fraud. You signed it yourself. Security guards entered the room. Hamilton nodded to them. Escort Mr. Al-Rahman out of the building. He has 15 minutes to clear his office under supervision. Farid looked around the table, searching for a single friendly face. There were none. Then his eyes landed on Desiree. You, he hissed. You planned this. From the very beginning. Desiree calmly gathered her papers. No, Mr. Al-Rahman. You planned your own downfall when you decided that stealing was easier than working honestly. I just exposed the truth. The difference between us is simple. You judged me by my body. I judged you by your crimes. The guards took Farid by the arms. As he was dragged out, he shouted threats, but his words sounded empty, desperate. When the door closed, Hamilton turned to Desiree. Ms. Washington, on behalf of all shareholders and investors, thank you. You saved this company. A week later, the story broke in all the newspapers. Arab luxury hotel mogul charged with $50 million fraud. The headlines were brutal. The video of him humiliating Desiree resurfaced, now with new context. Man who called woman fat was stealing millions from investors. Farid was arrested. Bail denied. Accounts frozen. His empire collapsed in days. 18 months later, Desiree was sitting in a cafe in Brooklyn, not far from where she grew up. The place was simple, full of ordinary people drinking coffee and talking. She preferred it that way, away from the Manhattan skyscrapers, away from the spotlight that had followed her for months after the Farid case. Her phone vibrated. A news notification. Former businessman Farid Al-Rahman sentenced to 15 years in prison for fraud and money laundering. She read the article in silence. The victims would recover some of the money. The company had been restructured, now run by an ethical board. Julian Torres received 3 years of probation for cooperation. May I sit down? Desiree looked up. Nadia, Farid's cousin, was there, holding a cup of coffee, her eyes red as if she had recently cried. Of course, Desiree said, surprised. Nadia sat down, silent for a moment. Then she spoke, her voice low. I came to apologize. I put you in that situation. If I hadn't arranged that meeting. You didn't know who he really was, Desiree gently interrupted. I knew he was arrogant. I knew he judged people. But I didn't know he was a criminal. Nadia wiped a tear. My family is destroyed. My parents lost everything they invested in his hotels. And I keep wondering if I was complicit somehow. Desiree reached across the table and held her hand. Nadia, you are not responsible for his choices. Farid chose to steal. Farid chose to lie. And he chose to humiliate me because he thought he could. You just tried to help. But you lost so much time with this whole process. People attacked you online saying you made it all up for revenge. You had to testify in court, relive that humiliation. I didn't lose anything, Desiree said firmly. I gained. I gained the confirmation that my value never depended on the opinion of men like your cousin. And I gained the satisfaction of knowing I did the right thing, not the easy thing. Nadia nodded, sobbing softly. He sent me a letter from prison. He said you destroyed his life. Desiree took a sip of coffee. No. He destroyed his own life. I just turned on the light. After Nadia left, Desiree walked through the streets of Brooklyn until she reached a familiar building. Hope Community Center. She had grown up there, participated in after-school programs, learned to be confident despite the criticism about her body. Inside, 20 teenagers sat in a circle waiting for her. Black, Latina, Asian, white girls. All plus size, all facing the same cruel world that Desiree knew well. Good afternoon, Ms. Washington, they said in unison. Desiree smiled. This was her project now. Every Monday, she came to teach finance and self-esteem to girls the world insisted on diminishing. Today, she began, I want to talk about power. Not the power to be thin, beautiful, or approved by men. The power to know your worth and never negotiate it. A 15-year-old girl raised her hand. Ms. Washington, is it true that you used that rich man's case to become famous? Desiree was not offended. Some people say that. But let me tell you what really happened. I was publicly humiliated by a man who thought my body defined my worth. He thought he could destroy me with words. But do you know what his mistake was? She looked around the circle. He assumed I was weak. That women like me accept crumbs of respect. But I didn't need his approval. I had something much more powerful: education, competence, and integrity. And when the opportunity arose to expose his crimes, I didn't hesitate. Not because I wanted revenge, but because it was the right thing to do. Another girl asked, but weren't you scared? He was so powerful. Yes, I was scared. Every night. But you know what's scarier than powerful men? Living an entire life diminishing yourself because other people can't see your value. That is the real prison. The girls were silent, absorbing. At the end of the session, Desiree received tight hugs from each of them. One whispered in her ear, when I grow up, I want to be just like you. Desiree smiled, her eyes moist. No, sweetie. You're going to be better. That night, alone in her apartment, Desiree opened her laptop and saw an email from Patricia Chun. Desiree, I was just offered a financial consultant position at the World Bank. I turned it down. I recommended you. The position is yours if you want it. You deserve it. Desiree closed her eyes, smiling. 2 years ago, a man had judged her unworthy of a meal. Now, she had the chance to influence global financial policies. But more important than that, she had peace. Peace in knowing that her revenge was not destroying Farid, but building something greater than his hatred could ever reach. She typed her reply, Patricia, I accept. Thank you for believing in me. Then she opened a drawer and took out a photo. It was of the Bella Vista restaurant that terrible night. Someone had captured the exact moment she looked Farid in the eyes and said, You are the poorest man I have ever met. She looked at the photo for a long moment. Then she tore it into small pieces and threw it in the trash. She didn't need it anymore. She no longer needed the anger, the desire to prove something, the need for validation. She was already free. And freedom, Desiree learned, doesn't come from making other people pay. It comes from knowing that no external opinion can define who you are. Farid was in a cell, but for years he had lived in a much worse prison, the prison of ego, prejudice, and superficiality. Desiree, on the other hand, was always free. He just couldn't see it. If this story touched your heart, subscribe to the channel and share it with someone who needs to remember that their worth never depends on the opinion of those who cannot see beyond appearances. Because in the end, the best revenge is not destroying those who hurt you. It's building a life so fulfilling, so meaningful, that their opinion becomes completely irrelevant.